Life can be unpredictable at times. Who would ever think that the lives and deaths of the sons of a simple fishing family from Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, would so deeply impact and then influence the life and work of one of the 20th century's great American artists? The fisherman was Francis Mason, his wife Martha, his daughter Alice, and his 2 adult sons, Donnie and Altie. The artist was Marsden Hartley, and the love he found and the tragedy he endured on remote East Point Island would change both his life and his art profoundly. History first takes note of Francis Mason on February 12, 1892. On that day, the Rising Sun Lodge No. 39 of the Independent Order of Oddfellows was founded in Lunenburg. Swearing to be an advocate of friendship, an enactor of love, and a pursuer of truth, the very first man to sign the register was
Francis Mason, mariner, Eastern Points Island, age 25.
Marsden Hartley was 10 years younger than Francis Mason. His fractured childhood, his artistic endeavors, and his ceaseless early wandering are all well documented. But in a quest to dig even deeper than his own roots in Maine, Hartley found himself looking toward a remoter place, a place where the old ways still prevailed, a more authentic version of his memories of his own early childhood in Maine. He found what he was looking for in a tiny coastal community in Lunenburg County, Nova Scotia. After a long sea journey from Bermuda via New York, Hartley finally landed in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and boarded a train for the all-day trip to Lunenburg. He had planned to meet a friend there who was traveling in Nova Scotia. In Hartley's own words, writing to Adelaide Kuntz,
"The all-day train ride up from Yarmouth to Lunenburg was nice in boat flavors. A crew of fellows and the smoker on the train, all natives on their way home from a long voyage up the coast. Reached Lunenburg finally at 4:15, to find my friend Davison had left to go up to Halifax the day before. I stayed a week in Lunenburg, but I couldn't like it. Such a curiously gauche place, although the people are very hearty and genial. The most German names ever imagined: Zwicker, Knickel, Kaulbach, Eisner, who speak thick English and not a word of German."
Hartley had been told about a small community about 4 miles up the coast from Lunenburg. It was called Blue Rocks after the pyritic slate that forms the coast in those parts.
The taxi man at the station said, "You must come over to Blue Rocks. Lovely there." So after a week of boredom in an elegant tourist house, I walked out here in the 4 miles and into this dear little house. Such a sweet family. Far more cultivated than the average. You'd love them, especially the mother. I fell for her at once. And 2 sons at home, very handsome and nice boys. They make good company for me, all jovial, bright, witty. Dear little Papa plays the organ here in the parlor, and being Episcopalian, he plays the hymns and chants I used to sing myself when I was a choir boy in Lewiston. I have half a house at my disposal. Parlor, bedroom, excellent food for $7 a week, and not a damned artist in sight.
Hartley seemed always to have wanted exclusivity, to be the only artist around. Was that in order to avoid artistic comparisons? Or perhaps he just wanted to be the center of attention. But it's more likely that even though he was getting older and better known as an artist, he still lacked the kind of specific identity he craved. It was only after he left Nova Scotia that he proclaimed himself to be the painter from Maine. Hartley seemed to be enjoying the simple life in the home of Leander Knickel in the village of Blue Rocks, but still, it was lacking something. In a letter to Adelaide Kuntz, Hartley describes a spinning bee, where some local women brought their spinning wheels to make woolen yarn for winter socks and mittens. And in the midst of all this homespun simplicity, he appears to have been smitten by one spinner in particular.
It wasn't long before I noticed that the third woman was very beautiful, with a most tender, mystical face, her entire appearance being Gothic in its simplicity. Her face looked as if she had spent her entire life in the soft gleam of ancient stained glass windows lighted by the western sun, for every smile seemed to have clear light in it, and every silence a warm glow of faith, and her voice was gentle. I settled for myself the fact that since this woman spun her wool so beautifully, with such fine rhythmical gestures, drawing out the yarn to the right length always, spinning an especially good strand, she would do everything else that way. She would have a clean house, the food would be good, and the atmosphere would be sweet and kind, as my later experience in her household proved to me. It was one of the most elevating experiences of my life. In truth, the most elevating. So I asked them to take me to board the rest of my stay, so I could widen the scope of my vision of this country. It is an island here only 1.5 miles from Blue Rocks, and is gorgeously wild, with deep forests and the trees all hanging with grizzly moss, and still more secluded than Blue Rocks, and really, it's what I've been looking for.
And so, Hartley decamped from the mainland to the Mason family home on East Point Island, just offshore from Blue Rocks.
Well, we're seated here on Eastern Points Island. We're in the house where Marsden Hartley spent the summer and fall of 1935 and 1936. I'm seated at the table, which appears in 2 of his famous paintings, of the Fisherman's Last Supper, which he painted a few years after he stayed here. We suspect strongly that the chairs I'm seated in and the chairs around this table are the chairs that were used by the family. The house is pretty untouched. It was a double house for 2 brothers and their families. The room that we're in is not the dining room where the family ate. Wonderful because the place is pretty untouched. Things have been moved around, certainly. As I said, we're not in the room where the paintings were, where Hartley depicts in the paintings. We're clear that that's in another room here. It's certainly a moving experience to come into this house. So little has changed since the time that Hartley was here. It appears as though the furnishings are original to the house. There are many rather rudimentary pieces of furniture, blanket boxes, various chests, tables, a lot of handmade items that you would have found in any probably farmhouse or fisherman's house in Lunenburg County. It's a remarkable experience to almost sense Hartley's presence in this house.
And there on East Point Island, he met the source of perhaps his greatest inspiration, and at the same time, his greatest personal tragedy.
Well, Aldo used to work in Lunenburg, and then on Saturdays he used to go home and get ready and come back up. Well, I used to always ask him, see if I could go down to Eastern Points to my grandmother's with him, and then he used to always pick me. I used to go with him down, and he used to leave me off on one side of Eastern Points where my grandmother lived, and then he'd go home. And when he was all dressed up, when Alty was all dressed up, he'd come over. And when he came across, he used to call me the little skipper. Come on, skipper now. And he had a Cape Iron boat, and he had a seat there that I could sit onto. And he used to say, "Well, you'll be the skipper." And I thought it was big, you know. And so I used to sit there. And they was all strong boys. He was all big, healthy, strong boys. And he would do anything for you. He was a good man and strong man he was. And he, well, it's pretty hard to describe him. Everybody liked him. Dottie's quiet, yes. Well, Dottie, he had this kind of a steady girlfriend, but Alty, he was just a single guy going around and enjoyed life. I was a little kid at the time. Right. I was only about 8 or 9 years old then.
Hartley spent a pleasant 10 weeks in Nova Scotia in the fall of 1935. He was particularly taken with the Mason sons, Donald and Alton, known to all as Donnie and Alty, and he was not shy about expressing his feelings in his letters to Adelaide Kuntz.
These Francis Mason folks are simply wonderful. God, what men, and the women suited to them. When I came up last week for the day to see the speedboat the two giant sons are building, I was swept away by the tidal forces of their humanism. Donald, or Donnie, is 31 and looks much like the youngest, and Alty is 29. Both of them are divine when they are drunk, and terribly shy when they are sober. The first thing Alty said was, "You promised me you'd drink with me." So of course I said sure, and so we were all inside the speedboat before she was launched. 7 fishermen, and what a lovely time it was.
Hartley's acceptance into the home and lives of the Mason family, his sharing of their remote and almost pioneer way of life, and most of all, his relationship with Donnie and Alty gave him a renewed zest for life and a strong desire to return the next year.
I spent 3 weeks on this island and fell in love with the whole family. Father, mother, sister, and 2 magnificent sons. And while of course they were my major attraction due to their physical magnificence and their superb gift for comradeship, I nevertheless was drawn to the father and mother. And the father is one of the greatest men I have ever known. He is 70 and simply adorable, so handsome and so fine inside. I returned soon to Nova Scotia, where I was last fall for 10 weeks and was so enamored of it. I am already preparing to go there and have a long summer of work and lovely life. They're waiting for me now, so I shall go late May and stay till early December, as I have lots of work in painting and writing I want to do. I can do it there without interruption, and marvelous playmates to go with it. The boys build their own boats and just finished a speedboat before I left. I was the first passenger. They get wildly drunk every now and then, and my God, well, you know, simply wild.
So the following year, 1936, Hartley returned to East Point Island and the Mason family. They gave him the use of a fish shack by the ocean to work in, and there he produced a number of paintings that reflected his contented mental state, but are not generally thought to contain the depth of meaning that his other work did, especially his late period after 1936.
I do my painting in what was called a fish store, or a small shed in which fishing nets and coils of rope, stone anchors, lobster buoys, and other equipment are stored, permeated by the odors of salted mackerel and cod liver oil. I have 1/4 of the small room and a clear view of horizontal immensity. I can shut the door and not be seen. My corner is full of seashells, bleached crabs, cork floats, coils of rope that the sun has bleached white, and these then are the new subject matter which I try to make portraits of.
And so the summer of 1936 passed pleasantly for Marsden Hartley, painting, writing, eating well, and drinking with Donnie and Altie. His letters hint at much more than just drinking. All in the idyllic surroundings of a remote island community far, far away from New York and even from Maine. But all that would change in September 1936, when a great storm, probably a hurricane, directed its fury at the coast of Nova Scotia. It was a Saturday night. Donnie, Altie, and their cousin were over on the mainland. They spent the evening with friends, and by the time they decided to take to their dory and row home, they were very drunk. Entreaties to stay put while the storm was raging fell on deaf ears. Donnie and Altie Mason shoved off in their dory for the 1.5-mile pull to East Point Island. They never arrived. After the storm passed, search parties scoured the nearby coast for the dory and the bodies.
Well, anyway, they got in the missing. And I don't know if they were in a boat, in a dory, or what was going on, but everybody looked for them. And my mom's uncle, he came up with this boat, and I think Mom was in the boat with, because she told me the story. And they were coming up towards Blue Rocks, and Mom said that he was in the water, and from his waist up, he was standing right up. He had oil clothes on.
It shook the community of 75 people like an earthquake, and life here has been made empty without them. They hadn't a mean bone in their bodies and were most demonstrative with drink. I had learned to know them so well, and they were so loving to me, and as now the boys would both have been home soon, there would have been so much good fellowship and fun. They are gone. And I'm all but heartbroken, and I doubt if I can ever come back here again, because the place is nothing without them. They were so talented as fishermen, mechanics, boat builders, blacksmiths, and oh so kind and thoughtful and loving to all. Everybody, old and young, loved them. I haven't felt anything like it since the death of Karl von Freiburg, who, as you know well, became an image in my spiritual experience. One must love what one loves to the end, and so I shall love these boys as long as I have memory of them. The biggest one wanted to build a little shack with me and live in it with me, as he was off women, he said, because the one girl he thought he wanted had jilted him. He was grand in his sweeping magnetism, as his brother was gentle and enfolding, and with the whole family together here, I never felt I needed any other social life. It's so hard to give them up, and I still can't think that it is true. And tonight being Saturday night, it is the hour for the big one to be coming home, and he will not come. So it goes.
Them boys was the life of Eastern Point, and when they got lost and wasn't around anymore, that's what killed Eastern Point. Eastern Point was dead, because they was the life of Eastern Point. It was on a Sunday afternoon, it was nice, and they had Donnie and Al with the two, Altie and Donnie, I mean,
Yeah.
and the other fellow, they found him
Later. Right.
And it was on a Sunday afternoon when at the Anglican Church in Blue Rocks. The church was full because they was well-known boys and always into everything and stuff. And, that's when they got lost, that killed Eastern Points.
Donnie and Altie Mason were laid to rest in Blue Rock Cemetery. Their deaths recorded in the parish register at St. Barnabas Church. In the brief time after the deaths, and before he left the island, the Mason house welcomed two new visitors, American artist Jack Huntington and his wife Mary. They were there quite by chance, looking for a schooner to buy.
My parents happened to come here, and shortly after the fall drowning of the two sons and the nephew in 1936, when Hartley was still in the house. And they came out here looking for a boat. And they came by train from Gloucester to Lunenburg and heard there was a boat for sale out here and had somebody bring them out. And they had no idea what they were getting into. And my father actually recollected their meal in the Blue Room with Hartley and the family after the drowning. And my father did 2 oil pastels and a large tempera of Francis Mason, all from memory. Marsden Hartley was certainly a peculiar character, and not everybody would shy to a man like Hartley. He was blunt, he could be unpleasant. You can't help but sense his presence here. His spirit is still here, as are the Masons, and that's wonderful because the place is pretty untouched. Everything that was here when Hartley was here appears to still be here. Nothing is gone.
Hartley, halted in his tracks and numb with grief, left the island a few weeks later, never to return, except in his paintings and his memories of the Masons, memories that haunted him for the rest of his life.
I leave here with a heart full of anguish, not for my own loss, but for the dear family whom I love. So my saga of Nova Scotia is ended.
2 years later, in the summer of 1938, Hartley was preparing to paint Fisherman's Last Supper, one of his best-known works.
I want to have a real time off to start a large, symbolic portrait of the Fisher family in Nova Scotia 2 years ago, when the two sons were drowned, as a kind of memorial to all this. They are so vivid in my mind, and become more so as I think of them. Thanks to the power of the imagination, one can keep believing in things that have physically vanished. And I see these fine, incredible people morning, noon, and night in my mind.
And thanks to the coincidences that led him to Nova Scotia and the Mason family, to his vivid memories of them and the time he spent on East Point Island, we have been left with some of the most iconic works of a great American modernist painter. Life can indeed be unpredictable at times.